What if I told you that the White House is not just losing control of the most critical waterway on Earth, it's handing it to Iran on a silver platter? What if I told you that Iran holds a secret weapon so devastating, so unstoppable, that it doesn't need hypersonic missiles, nuclear warheads, or a massive army to bring the United States to its knees? This weapon is called the digital nuke, and it's aimed directly at the underwater fiber optic cables that carry 99% of the world's internet traffic, the lifeblood of Wall Street, the global financial system, and the entire multi-trillion-dollar AI industry that we've bet our entire future on. Iran can cut those cables at any moment, with zero warning, and trigger a total collapse of the US financial markets, a shutdown of the global AI supply chain, and an economic apocalypse that will make the 2008 crash look like a minor blip. And the worst part? We did this to ourselves. The White House's own reckless, short-sighted policies in the Middle East have not just handed Iran full control of the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway that carries 20% of the world's oil supply, they've given Iran the perfect, unchallenged position to unleash this digital nuke at any time, with no way for us to stop it. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not a hypothetical from a sci-fi movie. This is happening right now, in real time, and almost no one in the mainstream media is talking about it. Almost no one in Washington is warning you about it. And by the time you realize what's happened, it'll be too late. We've spent decades obsessing over Iran's nuclear program, over its hypersonic missiles, over its proxy armies across the Middle East. We've spent trillions of dollars on military hardware, on sanctions, on covert operations to contain Iran's military threat. But we've completely missed the weapon that can actually destroy us. A weapon that costs Iran almost nothing to deploy, that leaves almost no trace, that can cripple our entire economy and our technological dominance in a matter of hours, with almost no way for us to retaliate. Iran doesn't need to sink our aircraft carriers to win. It doesn't need to launch a nuclear strike to bring America to its knees. All it needs to do is cut a handful of underwater fiber optic cables in the Strait of Hormuz, and the United States of America, the world's only superpower, will be brought to a grinding halt. And thanks to the White House's suicidal strategic decisions over the last decade, Iran now has complete, unchallenged control over that very waterway, and every single critical cable running through it. We haven't just opened the door to our own destruction. We've held it open, and invited Iran to walk right through it. Before we dive into the White House's catastrophic strategic blunders that handed the Strait of Hormuz to Iran on a silver platter, unpack the terrifying details of Iran's digital nuke weapon, and expose exactly how a single coordinated cut to those underwater cables can collapse Wall Street and bring the global AI industry to its knees, you need to do one thing right now. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and flip on your notification bell immediately. This is the most critical, underreported story of our time, and the corporate media is burying it, afraid to panic the markets, afraid to call out the White House's suicidal policies, afraid to tell you the truth about the existential threat facing our economy and our technological future. We're here to bring you the unfiltered, hard-hitting facts, no spin, no sugarcoating, no White House talking points, just the cold, hard reality of what's happening, what Iran is planning, and what this means for you, your savings, your investments, and the future of our country. If you want to stay ahead of this crisis, if you want to understand the threat before it's too late, if you don't want to be caught completely off guard when the digital nuke is unleashed, you need to subscribe right now. This is not a story you can afford to miss, and we're the only ones bringing you the full, uncensored truth as it unfolds. Let's start with the most unthinkable reality first. The United States of America has voluntarily surrendered control of the Strait of Hormuz, the most strategically important waterway on the face of the earth, to the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is not a military defeat. We weren't pushed out in a battle. We didn't lose control in a war. We gave it away. With our own hands. With our own reckless, short-sighted, strategically suicidal policies from the White House, spanning both Democratic and Republican administrations, that have eroded every single pillar of our influence in the Middle East, abandoned our closest allies, and handed Iran unprecedented, unchallenged power over the strait. Let's break down exactly what the Strait of Hormuz is, and why it matters so much. It's a narrow, 21-mile-wide waterway between Iran and Oman, the only exit from the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea and the rest of the world's oceans. Every single day, 17 million barrels of oil pass through this strait. That's 20% of the world's entire oil supply, 30% of the world's liquefied natural gas, and 90% of all oil exports from the Middle East's biggest producers, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar. For 70 years, the United States has been the undisputed guarantor of security in the Strait of Hormuz. Our Navy's Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, patrolled the waters 24/7. Our aircraft carrier strike groups dominated the Persian Gulf. Our allies trusted us to keep the waterway open, to protect their oil exports, to contain Iranian aggression. That era is over. Forever. We didn't just lose that control. We threw it away. How did we do it? Let's start with the most catastrophic decision: the systematic collapse of our naval presence in the Persian Gulf. For decades, the United States maintained at least one full aircraft carrier strike group in the Persian Gulf at all times, often two, to deter Iran and protect the strait. Today? We have zero. None. Our most advanced aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, the $13 billion crown jewel of our Navy, limped back to Norfolk last month for emergency repairs that will take it out of action for at least 18 months. Our only other carrier deployed to the region, the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, was crippled by a mysterious, catastrophic fire in its hangar bay while on patrol in the Persian Gulf, forcing it to end its deployment early and return to the U.S. for repairs that will take 6 months to a year. Our Navy has 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers in its fleet, more than the rest of the world combined. But right now, only 3 of them are fully operational and ready for frontline deployment. The other 8 are stuck in shipyards, waiting for maintenance, repairs, and overhauls that have been delayed for years, thanks to chronic underfunding, staff shortages, and a broken supply chain that can't keep up with the Navy's needs. We have no aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf. We have no permanent naval presence capable of deterring Iran. Our Fifth Fleet in Bahrain is understaffed, under-equipped, and surrounded by Iranian proxy forces that have already launched multiple attacks on the base. Our allies in the region are watching this, and they're drawing the only logical conclusion they can: the United States can no longer protect them. The United States can no longer guarantee the security of the Strait of Hormuz. And so, they're abandoning us and turning to Iran instead. That's the second catastrophic mistake from the White House: the total alienation of our closest allies in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, the 2 countries that were once the cornerstones of our security architecture in the Gulf. For decades, Saudi Arabia and the UAE relied entirely on the United States for their national security. They bought billions of dollars of our weapons, aligned their foreign policy with Washington's will, and supported our military presence in the region. Today, they've normalized relations with Iran, with China acting as the mediator, ending decades of hostility and completely upending the security order we built in the Gulf. They've signed massive economic and military deals with China and Russia, joining China's Belt and Road Initiative, agreeing to sell their oil in yuan instead of US dollars, and purchasing advanced weapons from Chinese and Russian defense contractors instead of American ones. They've refused to let us use their military bases for strikes on Iran, refused to back our sanctions on Iran, and refused to align their foreign policy with Washington's will. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have now publicly stated that they will no longer rely on the United States to protect the Strait of Hormuz. They've entered into a joint security agreement with Iran to patrol the strait together, along with Iraq, Kuwait, and Qatar. Let that sink in. The countries that once relied on us to protect the strait are now partnering with Iran, the very country we told them to fear, to secure the waterway. They've handed Iran a seat at the table, a formal role in patrolling and controlling the Strait of Hormuz, with zero input from the United States. We didn't just lose our allies. We pushed them straight into Iran's arms. And with that, Iran went from a rogue state trying to challenge our control of the strait to the official, recognized co-guarantor of security in the waterway. We didn't just give Iran control of the strait. We gave it international legitimacy, courtesy of our own former allies. The third catastrophic mistake from the White House: the total failure to contain Iran's naval buildup in the Persian Gulf. While we were distracted by wars in Ukraine and tensions in the Indo-Pacific, while our Navy was falling apart from maintenance delays and underfunding, Iran was building the most powerful asymmetric naval force in the world, specifically designed to dominate the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy now has over 4,000 fast attack speedboats, armed with anti-ship missiles and suicide drones, that can swarm our warships in the narrow waters of the strait. They have hundreds of coastal anti-ship missile batteries, hidden in caves and bunkers along the Iranian coastline, that can hit any target in the strait in seconds. They have a fleet of mini-submarines, underwater drones, and specialized Frogman commando units, trained specifically for underwater sabotage operations. They've mined the entire strait with thousands of underwater mines, that can be detonated remotely at any time, closing the waterway in a matter of hours. Today, Iran has the ability to shut down the Strait of Hormuz at any time, with zero warning, and we have no way to stop them. We have no aircraft carrier in the region to counter them. Our allies have abandoned us. Our naval forces are outnumbered and outgunned in the narrow waters of the strait, where Iran's asymmetric tactics are the most effective. The Strait of Hormuz is no longer an international waterway guaranteed by the United States. It's Iran's waterway. Iran controls who comes and goes. Iran controls when it's open and when it's closed. Iran controls every inch of it. And the White House? They're sitting back, doing nothing, pretending that nothing has changed, that we still hold the power, that Iran is still the rogue state we can contain with sanctions and empty threats. It's not just delusional. It's strategic suicide. And here's the most terrifying part of all: control of the Strait of Hormuz isn't just about oil. It's about the 14 critical underwater fiber optic cables that run directly through the strait and the surrounding Arabian Sea, cables that carry 99% of all intercontinental digital traffic between Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. These cables are the backbone of the entire global internet, the global financial system, and the global AI industry. And now that Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz, it controls these cables. It can cut them at any time, with zero warning, using its underwater commando units, its mini-submarines, its underwater drones. And when it does, it will unleash what military and cyber experts call the digital nuke, a weapon of mass economic destruction that can collapse Wall Street, shut down the global AI industry, and bring the entire world economy to its knees, with almost no way for us to stop it, and almost no way for us to retaliate. Let's break down exactly what these underwater cables are, and why they're so critical. There are 428 underwater fiber optic cables crisscrossing the world's oceans today, with a total length of over 1.4 million kilometers. These cables are not just for streaming Netflix or browsing social media. They carry 99% of all intercontinental digital data on Earth. Every single international phone call, every email, every video conference, every financial transaction, every data transfer between data centers across the world, flows through these cables. Satellite internet? It carries less than 1% of global intercontinental data. It's too slow, too expensive, too low bandwidth to handle the massive volume of data that flows through the world every single day. Without these underwater fiber optic cables, the global internet as we know it ceases to exist. The global financial system ceases to exist. The global AI industry ceases to exist. And the most critical of these cables? The 14 that run through the Strait of Hormuz and the Arabian Sea. These cables connect the financial hubs of London, Frankfurt, and New York to the markets of Dubai, Mumbai, Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Singapore. They connect the data centers of Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud across 3 continents. They carry the data that powers the global supply chain, the global banking system, the global stock markets, and the entire multi-trillion-dollar AI industry. Cut these 14 cables, and you cut the world in half. You disconnect the West from Asia, from the Middle East, from Africa. You shut down the flow of data that powers the entire global economy. And Iran can do this at any time, right now, with complete impunity, because it controls the waters where these cables lie. Let's talk about Iran's ability to cut these cables, because this is not a hypothetical. This is a proven capability. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy has a specialized underwater commando unit, the Sepa Navy's Frogman Corps, which has been training for decades to sabotage underwater infrastructure. They have a fleet of advanced underwater drones, mini-submarines, and specialized cable-cutting equipment that can reach the depths of the Strait of Hormuz in the Arabian Sea, where these cables lie on the ocean floor. They've already mapped every single one of these 14 cables, using high-resolution underwater sonar and surveillance drones, and they know exactly where to cut each cable to cause maximum damage, with minimal effort. We already know they've tested this capability. In March of 2026, 3 critical underwater fiber optic cables in the Arabian Sea, just outside the Strait of Hormuz, were mysteriously cut, disrupting internet access across the Middle East, South Asia, and Europe for 3 full days. The mainstream media blamed it on a commercial ship's anchor dragging along the ocean floor. But our intelligence sources, and multiple independent cybersecurity experts, have confirmed that Iran's underwater drones were operating in the exact area of the cable cuts at the exact time they happened. This was not an accident. This was a dry run. A test. Iran wanted to see how much damage they could do with a small, coordinated cut of just 3 cables. They wanted to see how long it takes to repair the cables. They wanted to see how the world would react. And what they learned terrified anyone paying attention. Even that minor, temporary cut of 3 cables caused over $7 billion in economic losses in just 3 days. It disrupted global supply chains, delayed financial transactions, crashed regional stock markets, and shut down cloud services across 3 continents. Imagine what a coordinated, permanent cut of all 14 critical cables in the Strait of Hormuz would do. It wouldn't just cause billions in losses. It would trigger a global economic apocalypse. And the first domino to fall would be Wall Street. Let's break down exactly what happens when Iran cuts those cables, and the digital nuke detonates on Wall Street. Over $10 trillion worth of financial transactions flow through these underwater cables every single day. Over 80% of all stock trades on the New York Stock Exchange and Nasdaq are high-frequency algorithmic trades, which rely on sub-millisecond data transmission between New York, London, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Singapore. These trades live or die by speed. Even a 10-millisecond delay can cost a single hedge fund hundreds of millions of dollars in a single day. A total cut of the cables? It would shut down the entire system entirely. If the cables are cut, Wall Street can't communicate with the global financial markets. Banks can't settle international transactions. The SWIFT system, the backbone of global dollar payments, which relies entirely on these underwater cables, would be paralyzed. Hedge funds, investment banks, and trading firms can't execute trades, can't access market data, can't manage their positions. The stock market would freeze up entirely. Liquidity would evaporate overnight. Investors would panic, trying to pull their money out of the markets, with no way to do it. Retirement accounts, 401ks, pension funds would lose trillions of dollars in value in a matter of hours. The 2008 financial crisis was triggered by the collapse of a single bank. This would be the collapse of the entire global financial system all at once, with no way to stop it. And the worst part? We can't fix it quickly. Repairing a single underwater fiber optic cable takes weeks, sometimes months. You need specialized cable repair ships, which are in extremely short supply around the world. There are only 60 cable repair ships on the entire planet, and most of them are deployed in the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. To repair 14 cut cables in the Arabian Sea, you'd need to bring almost every single repair ship in the world to the region, and it would take a minimum of 6 months to repair all the cables, possibly longer. That's 6 months of a paralyzed global financial system. 6 months of Wall Street being cut off from the rest of the world. 6 months of economic chaos, of collapsing markets, of businesses failing, of people losing their life savings. And Iran can do this at any time, with zero warning, and we can't stop it. But the collapse of Wall Street is just the first domino. The second domino, and the one that will end America's technological dominance forever, is the total collapse of the global AI industry. The United States has bet its entire economic future, its entire global leadership, on dominating the artificial intelligence industry. Today, the global AI industry is valued at over $1.8 trillion, and it's growing at 37% a year. The biggest AI companies in the world are American: OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta. The most advanced AI models in the world are built and trained in the United States. This is our competitive advantage. This is what keeps us ahead of China, ahead of the rest of the world. And Iran's digital nuke can destroy it all in a matter of hours. Why? Because the entire AI industry is entirely dependent on these underwater fiber optic cables. Every single large language model, from GPT-4o to Gemini to Claude, is trained on data centers across the world, connected exclusively by these underwater cables. The training of a single state-of-the-art AI model requires the transfer of petabytes of data across oceans, between data centers in the United States, Europe, and Asia. Without these cables, that training stops dead in its tracks. You can't transfer petabytes of data over satellite internet. It's too slow, too expensive, too low bandwidth. It would take years to transfer the same amount of data that flows through a fiber optic cable in a single day. And it's not just model training. The entire cloud computing industry, which powers 90% of the world's AI applications, relies entirely on these underwater cables. Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud control 65% of the global cloud market, and their entire business model is built on a global network of interconnected data centers, linked by underwater fiber optic cables. Cut those cables, and the cloud collapses. Companies can't access their AI tools, can't run their applications, can't store their data. Startups building AI applications go out of business overnight. Corporations that have invested billions in AI integration can't use the tools they've built. The entire AI industry, the industry we've bet our entire future on, grinds to a complete halt. And it gets worse. The global semiconductor supply chain, which produces the advanced chips that power AI models, is entirely dependent on these underwater cables. The design of advanced chips happens in the United States. The manufacturing happens in Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan. The testing and assembly happens in China and Southeast Asia. Every step of this process requires massive amounts of data to be transferred across oceans, through these underwater cables. Cut the cables, and the semiconductor supply chain collapses. We can't send chip designs to Taiwan for manufacturing. We can't receive the finished chips back from Asia. The advanced PUS that power our AI models stop being produced. And without those chips, the AI industry dies. China has been trying to catch up to the United States in AI for years. Iran's digital nuke would hand China the global AI lead on a silver platter. While our AI industry is paralyzed, while our cloud services are down, while our semiconductor supply chain is collapsed, China's domestic internet, domestic data centers, domestic semiconductor industry are completely unaffected. They can continue to train their AI models, continue to build their chips, continue to dominate the global AI market while we're stuck in the dark. 70 years of American technological dominance, gone in a matter of hours, because Iran cut a handful of underwater cables in the Strait of Hormuz. The strait we handed to them on a silver platter, thanks to the White House's suicidal strategic policies. And the most insidious part of Iran's digital nuke? It's completely deniable. When Iran cuts those cables, they won't take credit for it. They'll blame it on a commercial ship's anchor, on an underwater earthquake, on a technical fault. There will be almost no evidence linking them to the attack. Underwater cable cuts happen all the time, usually by accident. We can't prove it was Iran. We can't launch a full-scale war over a broken underwater cable, even if it collapses our economy. The American people have no appetite for another war in the Middle East, especially over something most people don't even understand. Iran can cripple our entire economy, and our technological dominance, and we can't do anything about it. We can't retaliate. We can't prove it was them. We can only sit back and watch our country collapse, while Iran faces zero consequences. This is the reality we're facing right now. The White House has handed Iran control of the Strait of Hormuz, the most critical waterway on Earth. Iran has a digital nuke, aimed directly at the heart of our economy and our technological future. They can unleash it at any time, with zero warning, zero risk, and we have no way to stop it. And almost no one is talking about it. The mainstream media is obsessed with political drama, with celebrity gossip, with meaningless soundbites from Washington. The White House is pretending that everything is fine, that we still control the strait, that Iran is still contained. Our military leaders are warning about this threat behind closed doors, but they're being silenced by politicians who don't want to admit that they've failed, that they've given away our most critical strategic advantage, that they've put our entire country at risk. So what can we do? Is it too late? Can we reverse this? The answer is yes, But only if we wake up, only if we demand action from our leaders, only if we stop pretending that this threat isn't real. We need to rebuild our navy, fix our broken maintenance system, and restore our permanent aircraft carrier presence in the Persian Gulf to deter Iran and regain control of the strait. We need to rebuild our alliances with Saudi Arabia and the UAE to restore our security architecture in the Gulf and push back against Iran's growing influence. We need to harden our underwater fiber optic cables, build redundant routes that bypass the Strait of Hormuz, and deploy our own underwater security forces to protect these critical cables from sabotage. We need to take this threat seriously before it's too late. But right now, we're not doing any of that. We're sleepwalking into a catastrophe. We're letting Iran gain more and more control over the strait, more and more ability to unleash this digital nuke, while we bicker about politics, while we ignore the existential threat facing our country. The clock is ticking. Iran has already tested its digital nuke. They know exactly how much damage they can do. They know we can't stop them. They know we can't retaliate. And the White House? They're still pretending that nothing is wrong, that we're still the world's only superpower, that Iran is still a tiny rogue state we can contain with empty threats. It's not just delusional. It's strategic suicide. Thank you for watching this unfiltered breakdown of the most dangerous, underreported threat facing our country today. If this video opened your eyes to the White House's catastrophic decision to hand the Strait of Hormuz to Iran, to the terrifying power of Iran's digital nuke, and to the existential risk facing our economy and our technological future, hit the like button, share this video with everyone you know, and drop a comment below. Do you think Iran will actually unleash this digital nuke? Can the White House reverse course before it's too late? I read every single comment, and I can't wait to hear your perspective on this life or death issue. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now, turn on your notifications, because this story is unfolding by the hour. We're going to be covering every breaking development, every new move from Iran, every catastrophic mistake from the White House, and every critical warning that the mainstream media refuses to report. We're not going to sugarcoat the truth. We're not going to parrot White House talking points. We're going to give you the unvarnished reality of what's happening, and what it means for our country's future. Until next time, stay informed, stay sharp, and never stop questioning the narrative. Because in a world of political spin and hidden threats, the truth is our only weapon. And we're going to need it.